Hello, Serellan community. Christian Allen here, and this is the first official Dev Q&A for Project Epsilon. We put up a post in the forums, and you guys have a lot of questions. So I'm going to try to keep this to about less than an hour, and just kind of go through the questions and give you an idea of what we're doing here on Epsilon. So I've got these kind of sorted into sections. Some of your questions were extremely detailed. We're really early on, so take note of that. So let's get right into it. So the first group of questions is about kind of setting, art style, maps, things like that. These are all your questions from the forums. So first off, thanks for taking the time to ask these. Let's see. What year is the game taking place? Near future. The picture looks nice. Well, I'm glad you guys like the first piece of concept art. The game is set in the near future. So as you can probably tell by the style of the character, it's okay, DM. You can come in. Fun doing it live. The setting is in the near future, so we haven't quite determined how far out. But you're probably looking 5 to 10 years out when you're looking at the gear and the tech. The artwork looks really cool. Is the game going to have that sort of style and feel to it? Yes, we are going for that style of artwork. Now, what you're seeing in concept art obviously is concept art. So as we get into 3D, but basically what we did is the response to the art style in Project Pi was really positive, both from the internets and from other devs and publishers that we talked to about it. And so we wanted to take that art style and kind of apply it back to a tactical shooter. We think that gives a game a unique look, something that's going to stand out, and yeah, we really enjoy it. So, what setting is this game set in? When, where, that sort of thing? Well, I already talked about near future, and we're going to be focusing on urban environments. And that kind of thing. We do want to do a globe-trotting game, so when I get into kind of the story stuff, we'll get along about that. Which deviant artist did you commission for your concept art? Eddie Smith is our concept artist. He's been in the industry forever. He did concept work for Halo. He did some of the concept work for us for Pi, and he's just a really great artist. What map environments will we use? Sizes. We're going to be focusing on smaller environments. Our current production prototype level that we're working in is kind of like a business lobby of a large building. So we're going to be focusing on small CQB spaces initially, not going for big outdoor spaces or giant sprawling complexes or anything like that. What does anime-inspired mean exactly? It's mainly on the art style, the post-processing, the visual look and feel of the game. So, I say inspired because we're not going for an anime game, in a full anime look, but mainly how the characters look and feel, and how the environments look and feel, and how those work together from a visual standpoint. I'm going to skip over some of these because there are more questions about art style. Possibilities to see any rain, fog, or snow, not in the initial prototype. Kenny wants trigger discipline will be represented in in-game models. It will be on my list, Kenny. One of the things that we are focusing on with Epsilon is we're in prototype phase. So we're building small initial gameplay prototypes to prove out concepts, and I'll talk about those when we get to the design section. And then the broad art style, the broad architectural style, and things like that. So a lot of those details will get worked out as we move down the road. I want to be really upfront about where we are and what we're focusing on. And with Epsilon, we want to focus on smaller chunks, get them in, get them working, and not I don't want to promise a bunch of features that may or may not come along. Going to be much more iterative on Epsilon and focus on that style of development. Okay, gameplay and design. Will there be a proper single-player experience with the option to give detailed orders to NPCs? So our first prototype is a single-player. We're focusing on single-player right now because we think we can provide a unique experience rather than try to compete right off the bat in multiplayer. Again, we're developing this in an iterative fashion. So the current prototype I'm working on right now is a surveillance and planning prototype, where you can access the building's security cameras to see what the situation looks like, and then plan out your team's routes through the level. So as far as specific individual orders and things like that, again, that'll be, those will be done iteratively. So we'll prototype, first them, your team moving through the space, and then what individual orders you can and can't do. We need a good SWAT-style game to play. Hint, hint. Thank you. Movement speed. Movement speed, we're still tweaking it and playing with it, trying to get it to feel good, that you can move pretty well through the environment, but obviously not. This isn't going to be a Quake-style, run and gun experience. Round-based or respawn? Don't know yet. Will the game require features to be unlocked? The current plan is no, although we may explore down the road things like unit upgrades as far as guys or gals in your unit gaining more experience and becoming more proficient with various gadgets and weapons. What perspective will the gameplay action be in? We're planning on first person, although we do have third person prototype in, and I'm experimenting with true first person right now. Will it be mostly objective-based CQB, open environments, mix of both? We're focusing on CQB. We want to nail the CQB experience before we try to do any long-range sniping environments and things like that. Really want to nail that one experience and get it really polished. Configure complete loadout custom and not just pick from a few pre-made classes. Still, we're going to start probably with the classes, just because that's efficient to get in first, and then branch from there. Different time of day for the map, day-night version. Don't know yet. We did for DLC on Takedown. We did a lot of lighting changes, and in urban environments, it doesn't really affect things as much than you would think, like with day-night versions. Outdoor environments, of course, are much more affected by that. So, yeah. Will it be turn-based? Not currently. It's not currently planned on turn-based. The UX that user experience that we're experimenting right now is really gathering of intel, planning routes, and then executing with your team. Did you like Breach and Clear? I did. I had some friends that worked on that. It's a great game. Any possibilities that you will implement some random features in the missions depending on game types? Random insertions for enemies, random insertions for hostages, bombs, etc. I like randomization to a point, and I'm sure that will flow into my work. Are the player characters PMC or military? I don't know if we have a section on story. Epsilon is in reference to the unit name, and the idea is that Epsilon is a unit of an armed tactical unit of Interpol. So there are a government organization going up against narco-terrorists and arms traffickers and things like that. So that's kind of the start of the setting. We're still obviously working on the story and character development, but that's kind of where we're starting at. And I'll probably have to change Interpol because they'll probably sue me if I say their name. How will you balance realism versus sci-fi elements, assuming it's the sci-fi near future, aka heartbeat monitors? Well, it's a great question basically, you prototype things in, you get a feel for them, and then I worry about kind of the setting elements of making it quote unquote realistic later. Obviously, having access to a built-in security camera isn't really sci-fi-y, but it adds a tactical advantage. Things like a camera that can look around corner obviously exist now, but what kind of capabilities does that camera have? We have that prototyped in the game already, and it's pretty cool. So you just get them in and have them in there. I mean, some heartbeat monitors are a great example, of something where it can be fun in some elements and fun in other elements, and you can always tailor game modes around those kinds of things as you get to them as well. Let's see. Is there an overarching story like you would get from Rainbow Six or Ghost Recon? Yes, that's the plan with Epsilon. Is to build the story around this team and their kind of adversaries in the world. I'm going to skip ahead. Are you planning? This is a great one. Are you planning to have players do more than just shooting guns, other than typical FPS tropes in this game? I love the word tropes. Yeah, actually, that's what we're focusing. So on Takedown, I spent a lot of my time focusing on weapon handling first. Now we're focusing. This time around, we're focusing more on gadgets that can affect tactical play, like the camera that can look around corners, like a camera under the door, that kind of thing, interaction with doors, that kind of thing. Maybe placeable cameras, all sorts of different kind of stuff like that. Noise distractors, glow sticks, for communication and clearing. So we're really trying to get those in. We can get them in rough prototyping pretty quick. Play with them, see if they're fun, and you can get a lot of mileage out of a really rough prototype. I can have a simple prototype in a map with a guy walking around that all he does is insta shoot you when he sees you, and so the gameplay is more about kind of trying to figure out when his back's going to be turned to you. Now, obviously, in the final game, you want it more fleshed out than that, but you can get an idea if something's fun pretty quickly. Can I ask for dueling trees again? Make me a dueling tree model get someone to make a dueling tree model and get it into Unreal and send it to me, and I'll put it in the game. Is the game appropriate to include railguns? Probably not quite there. Is this going to be a realistic tactical shooter like the original Rainbow Six Ghost Recon SWAT, or more similar to R6 Vegas? As far as realistic, we're going to lean towards the more realistic. Obviously, with a setting in the future, it opens up some possibilities for other things. But we're not really trying to compete on the run and gun aspect, just because that's not where we can be unique, and there's plenty of options out there for that. Working doors. Doors are my nemesis in game development. We do have a prototype in for fluid doors. We'll have to see how those end up working. So, will the game feature a proper PC version designed around PC control inputs with drop-down menus and similar? That's where we're starting. So yes, we're getting that in prototype right now. We have a UI environment. Realistic damage without magical health regen, yes. Lean and prone. I need to prototype prone again to reopen that discussion. One of the things that kind of the art style allows us to do is to be a little more exaggerated with some of our character movements, and so that opens up lean to be a much more useful feature. Because when you constrain characters to strictly real-life movement capabilities, then your gameplay can be restricted as far as things like lean. Also looking at, like I said, the true first-person camera, having to look around corner stuff and things like that. Regenerating health, no. If you go with FPS, will it be first-person with view models or true first-person? Like I said, we're experimenting with true first-person right now, just to find out what kind of problems we're going to run into. And kind of one last one on that point. Will ballistic modeling be hit scan or projectile based? I'm going to experience. So really, the reason that you make this decision in the game is multiplayer performance. When you have a lot of real projectiles flying around the map, they are expensive to track, and so it's really going to depend. I'll probably start with them. The other thing is you don't get a big win about tracking projectiles when you're firing a projectile at 800 feet per second, or my math fails me right now. If it's going so fast, a supersonic round, that it's traversing a small space in whatever 30th of a second, then you might as well just be tracking hit scan, because it's pretty much the same effect. So we have both in the game right now, and we'll play with it. We'll probably just start with projectiles just so it's there, and see what it does to performance down the road, because it's easy to switch back and forth. Will there be in-game VoIP, 2D or 3D? Directional server browser. Okay, this is getting into co-op, multi-co-op and networking. I'm going to kind of skip over that because we're focusing on single player as our first example. I don't want to talk about VoIP features when that kind of stuff is down the road. Will the game be MP-centric again? So no. And I'm not saying we're abandoning multiplayer. It's just really trying to be upfront about how small and independent we are, and our extreme lack of resources. And so instead of trying to hit a broad brush and try to make every experience available on day one, we think it's better to focus on one experience, have that available early, polish that experience, and then start adding onto the game. With digital release these days, we'd much rather do it that way than a traditional build a whole game and release it when the individual components aren't as polished. Community and contribution. Will there be an opportunity to contribute assets before the game is released, or is everything being in-house by your team? We offered to do this on our last title, and we didn't get a lot of people contributing kind of assets that were really useful or fit art styles and things like that. But definitely, if the community was interested in it and we saw enough of a benefit to the game, we'd be happy to set up a forum or a system for people to submit content if they're interested in it. When can I throw money at you guys? That's a question phrased in a nice way. It's also been phrased as, when are you going to start begging for money? Right now we're planning on an early access release, and we aren't planning right now about doing any kind of crowdfunding. Although we may have to relatively soon. So I think that kind of thing will be based on what kind of early response that we get, and just again being transparent and honest. How much can I support this development? Like I said, let us know what you're interested in and give us feedback, and we can discuss it. Will there be the same awesome level of community involvement with the development process? Hopefully there'll be more. I had to get really heads down for some time there. But yeah, that's part of the fabric of what Serellan is community. That's when we talk to people. There's a reason I'm doing this with you guys and not with IGN. It's because we want you guys to get the first scoop. So yeah, definitely. Will there be friendly AI? That's the plan. AI is one of the most important aspects of a first-person shooter for me, and unfortunately it's something that's really difficult to do well. I agree. That's why I just hired one of the AI engineers from Ghost Recon. But yes, it is extremely difficult. One of the things that a more stylistic game gives you is that the perception of good AI is tweaked in your mind. When it was funny because on Pi, we had robots, and one of the reasons we decided on robots was that their AI was really simple, and nobody had a problem with that. Robots walk at you and shoot you and don't do anything else. But that's, it is a challenge, and that's why we're starting with it from the beginning and focusing on that from the beginning. How much time do you think the project will need to be full? Now we're in business and production. How much time do you think it would need to be fully developed? How much time can you give it? Well, to be the fully finished game, at least a year and a half. But it's going to be one of those, when it's done, it's done. I don't want to promise dates. That's gotten me in trouble in the past. And I think people would rather have a good product when it's ready than have a game at a certain date. So we're going to be developing the prototype single-player experience demo over the next few months, and so we hope to have that relatively early, so that then we can iterate on it with people's feedback on what they like, what works well, what doesn't work well, what are kind of other experiences they'd want to see. Be much more iterative in that place than do more of a traditional like wait till beta kind of thing. What measure and change of direction or organization are you putting in place to avoid a repeat of takedown, not so good release, and subsequent patching? Again, early access and often updates. Definitely, let the people that are interested in testing the game and help us make the game better. Also, keeping things open to lots of people and not limiting it to smaller amounts of people. We were kind of trapped into that. Well, I won't say trapped into that. I mean, it was my decision, but we felt that we needed to keep it limited to this select group of Kickstarters. But in hindsight, that was a mistake. So that's how we're addressing it. And as far as organization, it's less about organization and more about doing more iterative development rather than more traditional date-based development of we got to get it done by this date, and so these are the features we can have, and we just work towards that. This is much more the opposite of what features are cool, what feels good. That's what determines what stays in the game. And if a more complicated feature needs to be down the line, then we can just have it down the line and just iterate on it naturally and just make it better and better and better. What development method is being used? I think I just described it's basically a Scrum Agile, although we don't. We do use a Scrum system called what's it called, Terry?
We use Trello.
Trello, basically a Scrum board, but that's basically the system. We don't do those silly stand-ups every morning because those are dumb. Let's see. Will you consider using pre-alpha testing? I already talked about that. What is the scope of the project with only 8 devs? Like talked about focusing on single player and multiplayer will come later. During takedown development, you commented that you were bug fixing in a hotel room after 12 hours on a conference floor. I know your backs were against the wall and things were tight. Moving forward, what can you do to not put in the same position? Again, that's what I talked about, is just changing the way we do development, and going completely independent will help a lot. We also learned a lot. I mean, takedown. We were all game veterans, most of us, but first time on a really small team, and learning capacity and also learning. I think messaging is an important learning for that. Like set people's expectations correctly is really important. Can we be reassured they'd be open as possible about funding and development status during the process? Yes. That's what I'm doing right now. Are you planning to seek publisher support again? No, we are not planning it. We want to release this game ourselves. For tons of different reasons. And that's one of the reasons that I put Project Pi on indefinite hold, was because we were going to need publisher support to move forward on that project, just through licensing and technical issues. And so this time, you know, it's a lot riskier for me personally and for everybody working on the game, but we're going to give it a go. And so it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting. Are you looking to Kickstarter? Don't know yet. If we do crowdfunding, I'd probably lean towards something more Indiegogo-like, that can be more of a long-term thing rather of a campaign. Just because the campaigns can, they take, you know, I'm basically taking development offline to do that, and I don't want to do that. Why should the player base trust you? See what we make, see if you like it. Are you planning a roadmap of shorts to show the community? Basically, I plan to just do what I'm doing right now and talk through where things are and what we're working on and what feels good, and like that. Will you be as transparent as you were with Takedown? I'll try to be more. Will you be willing to show your supporters photos, videos the whole way through development? If enough people ask for it, sure. You know, we can take pictures and post stuff. Again, nice thing about not being with a publisher, we can release stuff on our own schedule. You know, you know, being community focused, hopefully, you know, we're not going to have to deal with exclusives and things like that. We can just keep it all out in the open. Now, whether that'll work, we'll see. It'll be interesting. What did you learn specifically from Takedown that you will apply to Epsilon? I think I talked a lot about that stuff. Is this an extension of Takedown that never got finished? No. What engine are you going to use? Presumably UE3 or moving to UE4. We plan to move to UE4. Is this going to be a ground-up build, or is it being built on Takedown and or Pi? Ground up. Are you already in development, or are you discussing about concept? We're at prototype stage. We're past concept. Alpha, beta, I already talked about that. Finance, already talked about that. Why don't more game developers use CryEngine? Well, there's a lot of answers to that. Some of it was financial, some of it was technical, some of it was availability. But once you're in an engine, it's a challenge to change engines. Usually, when you hear of a product or a team changing engines, it's not a good sign, and it's really tough to transition over and, you know, work in a different environment. And so it's much easier to stay in the same style of engine moving forward. And Unreal does, you know, indoor rendering very well. If I was going to build a outdoor military sim, I'd probably be talking differently. Can you warn me about any other games your company is involved with? We're not currently involved with any other games. I don't know if that was what. Okay. When will 1.0 be finished? When it's done. Platforms. We're doing PC right now. We have no other plans for any other releases. We're going to focus on PC, get it right, get it out there, and then we'll look and see, you know, possibly about porting it down the road. But I don't want to do dual development again. It's too hard for a developer. The other possibility is what we may do is you know, once we got PC awesome and right, we may subcontract a port studio to port it, since they're probably better at it than we'll be. So that looks like I got through most of them. I have a bunch of extra paper here. So hopefully that kind of gives you a roundabout idea. I thought doing a QA would be more fun and a little more interactive than me writing up a big "What is Epsilon?" But hopefully that gives you an idea. We'll get another piece of concept art to you with this so that you have something else to look at. Okay, so if you're interested in the game, please come on over to Serellan.com. You can come into our forums. That's my preferred method of communication. You can also follow me on Twitter. If you want to give feedback, just post it on up. You can send me a direct message. I don't get back to all those direct messages on the forums because I do get a lot of them. And Terry, do we have the Steam page, Steam forum set up yet?
No, it's not set up yet. But
okay.
We have the app ID.
We got the app ID. Okay, well, we'll get the Steam page live so that you guys, the Steam community, can interact there. Terry will be monitoring the Steam community. I'm going to handle our forums, and then we both kind of tweet back on Facebook. And I don't read YouTube comments, anymore, but Terry does, so he'll let me know if there's any important ones on there, which there usually aren't. Thanks, Obama. So come on over, let us know what you think, and yeah, we'll see you on the internet. Thanks. Peace.